It's dope.
Tonight on the Elevation Nation podcast, we have on someone who I think of as a younger brother. He is an entrepreneur. He is a CEO. He is a co-founder. And honestly, he's a trendsetter. And we're going to get into that in a bit. But tonight we have on the one, the only. He's Twitter verified and Instagram verified, Jesse K. Welcome, brother.
Sam, I got to start bringing you around to introduce me to people. I can't do that myself. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a long time coming. I know I'm super excited to do this, but I appreciate you both having me on tonight.
Could you imagine having Sam like walking around with you everywhere you go and like doing that intro?
It. I sure hope it happens.
I mean, you're at Cornell University right now. What are you? You're a junior, right?
Yeah, like junior, senior-ish.
Junior, senior, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know when they get you the first day, everyone's like, introduce yourself. You're like, all right, gets to Jesse K. You know what? I have someone to do that for me, everyone. Bring in Sam. Come on, Sam. Introduce
Sam,
myself.
I'm down if you are.
I'd be a damn good hype man. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But Jesse, we are so excited to have you, man. I think, the moment we met you at the Next Gen Summit for Young Entrepreneurs, Parker and I had no idea what we were doing. But here comes this little kid, can't even drink, comes up to me, confident as hell, and starts talking. And, I think from the moment Parker and I met you and your father, whom we love, it was just an instant connection. And you are doing amazing things. You've introduced us to some really great friends, and you're really just making an impact on the world. So we're excited to share your story and who you are and how you use mental fortitude each and every day.
Yeah, just for the record, by the way, I couldn't legally drink until last week, so this isn't any groundbreaking stuff.
So he's going to celebrate his 21st birthday with us tonight, and we're all having a nice beer. So cheers to Jesse and 21. But Jesse, I remember that really vividly, to be honest with you. Next Gen Summit 2019, like Sam said, you were with your boy Alex Scheiman, right?
I
you met him there. I don't know. Did you guys meet at the Next Gen Summit?
I just don't know. It's so tough to pinpoint where it was because I spent a lot of time. The first time I really remember getting to know Scheinman was in LA for the ESPYs, and I got introduced to him by another Alex Myers. And I don't know if I'd met him before at Next Gen, but he was like, if you haven't met this kid, you have to go get coffee with him. And little did I know that would turn into a partnership that neither of us would have expected. But life's weird. I also vividly remember you guys from Next Gen. We were standing right by one of those tables in the main room. My dad was like, I just talked to these two young, cool dudes from Maryland. You should go talk to them. And crazy 3 or 4 years later, how much stuff's happened since.
It's just wild. I remember you guys were just like talking all the time. Like you guys, I feel like Scheiman and you were just talking the entire summer. I'm like, damn, like these guys are coming up with the next big thing. And you guys did something incredible together. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But let's take a step back for a second. Obviously, we're on the Elevation Nation podcast, Jesse. And our listeners probably don't know very much about you. So could you give your elevator pitch to the rest of the group who's listening right now?
Sure. So like you guys mentioned, I'm a junior at Cornell. I transferred here last year from Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. But outside of school, I spent a majority of my time, I'd say, working on three main things. First off, my business, Vyber Media, which helps brands and pro athletes on their digital and social platforms. So anything from their content creation to brand partnerships. Then I also co-founded with Alex Scheiman the Making Lemonade Fund, which is now a nonprofit. It was founded as a fundraiser during March of COVID in 2020 to help raise money for COVID relief. And we raised around $130,000 from a team of over 400 college students and hundreds, if not thousands, of individual donors to support Feeding America, the CDC Foundation, and Direct Relief Fund. That's since become a nonprofit that's going to support a wide variety of causes. And then finally, the Trendsetters podcast, interviewing different entrepreneurs and athletes and people I look up to. So anyone ranging from Jack Dorsey to Mark Cuban to Paul Rodriguez and sort of anyone in the middle.
He hasn't practiced that before, ladies and gentlemen.
Never said that ever.
Tell. He's never had to pitch
when he doesn't have
in,
you, Sam. That's what he goes with.
It's not as effective.
He doesn't need me if he. I don't know. That was good, Jess. Appreciate that, and it's very impressive context. Again, he just turned 21. still in college, has accomplished so much, and we're going to talk about that. But Jesse, I know you are a true believer in what Parker and I are preaching. In fact, you'd help us kind of shape mental fortitude and what it is and how to use it as a young adult. But just to remind Elevation Nation out there, mental fortitude is the concept that we think you need to conquer the real world as a young adult. It's the mindset you need to adopt. And it's broken up into 3 parts: self-awareness, vision, and accountability. So that's how we're going to shape this entire conversation all around mental fortitude and how it relates back to you and your story. So let's start it off, Jess. Let's dive right into self-awareness. I want to know, what one word best describes Jesse K?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'd say resilient or persistent. And I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, but I think like my youth years kind of shaped the grit or persistence that sort of has helped me today that I wouldn't have had without all of those experiences I had in the past.
So our next question that we're going to ask you is, why resilience, persistence? Like, what life event allowed you to understand that you are resilient or persistent? Let's go with resilient.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry.
No, I'd say, so ever since I was 9, I've struggled with, at some points back when I was younger, crippling anxiety, panic attacks, ADD, just to throw the ring around diagnosis, and I probably got it at some point. And it was debilitating at some point. I really struggled in middle school. I went to sleepaway camp when I was 9 years old, lasted 6 days. I think I set a record for quickest pickup. Went on a teen tour with one of my best friends, got most embarrassing moment of my life, got picked up from my parents in Vancouver 10 days in. I think that might have also set a record. So, you know, I had a bunch of stuff when I was younger, and it just affected self-confidence, and it affected sort of my ability to transition. So high school is a tough transition. My biggest fear ever was going to college. And I think sort of once I found business, I was able to break through some of those, I guess you could call them demons. And once I got through that stuff, while it might not sound significant to some people, like making the transition to even transfer to Cornell. I got into Cornell a year prior as a transfer, and I was too afraid to say yes, and I actually didn't go. And I can say it was because I wanted to stay in the city, but it was really like I didn't want to go 4 hours away from home. And I still had fear. And I think once I made that jump, it sort of showed me like, all right, I'm resilient. I can get through any of this stuff. Like those fears aren't really relevant to me anymore.
I want to appreciate you opening up and being so vulnerable with us in Elevation Nation about some of your fears. I think a lot of times as a young adult, especially in college, in a fraternity, at a sick school, it's sometimes embarrassing to talk about what you fear and what keeps you up at night and what stresses you out and what causes you anxiety. And while you're still growing through some of these fears, I mean, you and I talked about a lot of some of those big decisions that you were making, Cornell being one of them, and going through your mindset and your thought process about making that decision. I could say any rational piece of thought, but if there's still fear underlying in your gut somewhere, that will prevent you from moving forward. So I want to appreciate you being vulnerable with us, and I think we'll kind of bring up fear and some of my fears, some of Parker's fears throughout this episode, because I think it's a great thing for young adults, male adults especially, to talk about.
Do you ever sit down and acknowledge those moments earlier in your life and like reflect on them in some way that kind of like brings you back? You're like, why was I that way? Or am I still the person I was at that time? I just have learned something. And what was that? Where was that change, you know?
Yeah, so, you know, it's honestly too rare. I should do it more. I tend to be harsh on myself and just have very high expectations for myself. But then, you know, every so often, like, I sit down I talked with my dad like last week after I started here, and it was like, if only I knew that it would work out. Like, if only when I was going through so much, I don't know if I can curse on the show, but when I was going through so much stuff or shit. Yeah, thank you. All right, cool. So
Jinx, you owe me a soda? No?
So
or
when
a
I was
beer
going,
now, I guess?
Yeah, beer's on me. So when I was going through so much shit, like, it really would have been nice to know that it would work out. Like, when I was sitting in those high school classrooms, like, trying to figure, like, where I fit in, like, I liked sports. I was good at sports. I wasn't great. I was a decent student. Wasn't great. Like, trying to fit in wasn't great. Like, I wish I would have known when I was a sophomore in high school, before I started my podcast, before I started my business, like, hey, literally give yourself 4 years and you'll be okay. But it's cool. Like, I talked to my dad, and it's like, even 2 years ago, I was in such a different place in my life. Like, it's a common saying, but I think you over expect, or you have high expectations for you set way too high expectations for what you can do in a year, but you don't realize how much you can do in 3. And I think that's been huge for me. Like, my life has changed exponentially in the past 2 years. And I think some of that past stuff is just, it's really cool to see the growth and hopefully set up the future for what's going to happen. But yeah, I wish I could go back and tell 9-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 17-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old Jesse that, hey, it'd be okay. Like, if I told 15-year-old Jesse that, like, I was sitting 4 hours away at Cornell being perfectly okay, like, I would have shit myself.
And it takes a lot of self-awareness to, like, sit down. You're in your Cornell dorm, like, as a senior in college. You're taking, like, time to look back, and you clearly have done this many times and understood where you come from. And that is such an important component, especially in the real world. For Sam and I, things are moving very, very fast all the time, and you kind of lose sight on where you come from and what you've overcome and done. And a little reminder never hurts. At all.
Not at all.
Ever.
I think it's important because we get so caught up in, like, today. And I think I'm guilty of it. Like, it's like, fuck, today didn't go how I wanted it to go. Or, you know what? Fully transparent. Last week didn't go how I wanted it to go. And I need to have one of those conversations with my dad. I got up to Cornell. It was orientation week. And I was like, you know what, Dad? I'm too old for this. Like, this isn't my version of fun anymore. Like, I need to be in a routine. I can't get into a routine here. Like, I'm the person that's up. You can ask my roommate. I'm fucking insane. I wake up at 5:45 and I go to the gym and then I start my day. And I couldn't do that. And I was like, I need to come home and reset before I go back up. And I was so disappointed in myself. I'm like, I can't believe, like, I thought it's over. Like, I don't feel anxiety. I don't feel, like, uncomfortable. And I don't feel when I have too much time on my hands, I can't control it. And he was like, dude, literally think a year ago, like, you're fine. Like, I don't feel the urge to do stuff, but it's a constant reminder. You always have shit going on, and it's constant growth.
It really is constant growth. I mean, I see a lot of myself in you, probably why I call you my entrepreneurial little brother, of some of those fears and just not knowing what's next and how hard you work to kind of, I mean, I know why I do it. It's because when I work harder, I feel as though I have control of my life and where I'm ending up, even though I really don't. But that's why, you grind and you work and you think that you can kind of shape your own future when really it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of being in the right place at the right time. And so I think you have grown a ton in the few years that I've known you, and you are going to continue to grow in the future. Are there any things that right now, as 21-year-old Jesse, you've obviously shared a lot of your improvements, but is there something that you're like, all right, I want 23-year-old Jesse to not have this or to have this trait?
Dude, so much. Oh my God. Like, I can't even, like, we don't have enough time to start on stuff I don't have now that I need. Yeah, of course. I hope I'm only like 5 or 7% of the way there. If I'm any more, I'm super disappointed.
And I think that's that growth mentality, that growth mindset that comes with having mental fortitude. Of you conquered, if you went back to 16-year-old Jesse and gave him our framework of mental fortitude in our workbook and what we do, you would have had your goals of go to college, be by myself, not have anxiety, work really hard, start a cool company. You would cross all of those off the list. But mental fortitude is not something that you check a box and then move on with your life. It's something that you consistently come back to help shape where you want to go in the future.
Dude, speaking of crazy stuff, I think this is relevant. I just pulled up on my phone. I don't know if people can see this, but the date on this is February 8th, 2016. And credit to my dad for having me do this, but I wrote this down. I have the list right here. Like, I am progressing in some areas, but still struggling in others. I feel somewhat insecure in some situations. I need to gain confidence and expand friendships. I want to feel accepted by people that have similar interests in me or with me. I fear being alone and separated. Like, dude, I have it all. Like, and then I will help myself towards accomplishing these goals.
Whoa, there you go.
Like, it's just crazy to look back, dude. It's such a different person.
It's crazy. It definitely is. And you look back on that and you read that. And you made that real in 2016.
And that 5 years, dude, actually feels like my entire life. Like,
Isn't
that's
that
the
crazy?
crazy thing. Like, 26-year-old Jesse's going to be like, I can't believe I was dealing with that at 21. Like, that's
Right?
crazy.
I think what's really big about self-awareness, too, is taking a step back and realizing that maybe you aren't going to be that person or have that attribute. And it's understanding that, too. It's like, damn, I'm not the person who's going to be like this. I can't. Maybe I've tried, and every time I try, I fail. Or every time I try, it just never seems to be that way. And that's okay. That's all part of self-awareness. You know, Sam and I say double down on the things that you bring to the freaking table. Understand the things that you don't bring to the table and put that aside as like almost like an advantage. You don't put yourself in situations where you're not at a point where that's a strength. And obviously life throws everything at you, but I think personally, if you take the time and write down those things like you did back in 2016, and
here's
have
the thing,
that
like,
self-awareness, then yeah.
I'm
Go ahead.
so grateful for going through that shit. I really am. Like, if I didn't, I wouldn't be the same person I am. Like, I'm so happy I went through that pain because everyone's going to go through it at some point. And I have a feeling like I got through it early. Like, I've learned lessons from it and I'm better prepared for next time. Which there will be. There always is.
There always is, man. And having that self-awareness and having that ability to understand who you are. I mean, I think, unfortunately, for our generation, people like to shield themselves from realizing where they need to improve, right? Because facing the reality of looking yourself in the mirror sucks and it's painful. But I think, again, that's why it's the first step of mental fortitude for us. That first acknowledgement of here's who I am, here's what I bring to the table, here's where I need to work on is exactly what you need to establish first before bringing us into the next part of mental fortitude, which is your vision. And that's where we want to jump now, Jesse, and kind of looking to what you wanted and now want to accomplish in the future. So I guess in general questions, so our Elevation Nation can get to know you a little better, what activities bring Jesse K joy and help you feel fulfillment?
So I'd say I think there's kind of two perspectives in my head. There's like a micro and a macro. So like, what do I need to do on a day-to-day to feel really good? And then what do I need to do on sort of a macro? Do you prefer which one I go or both or either?
Hit me with both. I want to hear both.
So I'd say on a micro level, like I need to start every day working out. That's huge for me. Like I'm just such a routine guy. So that's been huge for me. And then staying in touch with family and friends. Like if I don't talk to people like you guys or my closest friends or my family, like that fucks up my day. It really does. Like I enjoy doing that. And then from a larger perspective, like I really get fulfilled by like on a hobby side, like traveling and spending time, it really like building deep, enjoyable relationships. But then on like a work side, like I really want to do stuff that I feel like has an impact. And like, I actually feel like I'm doing something cool. Like that's my somewhat issue with what I've been doing in the agency space. I love it and I enjoy it and the clients are fun, but I want to feel like I'm doing something like that's actually making an impact in a space. And that's why I loved making Lemonade. I felt like we made a real tangible impact in people's lives and sort of society.
So I knew you were an entrepreneur before you went to college, obviously. Where did that entrepreneurial drive come from?
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't credit my dad for at least a majority of sort of the spirit from it. So my dad, Brian, who both of you have...
Shout out, Brian. We love you.
Brian, we need another conversation, man. We got to catch up.
Yeah, Brian needs to come on this podcast. So Brian is the best. Brian is my dad.
You're always welcome, Brian.
We got to send him this shit. So my dad's the best. And, growing up, he also went to Cornell. He graduated, had a little bit of tough circumstances right out of school. And he started his business right out of school, same business for the past 25 years. And the reason I wanted to go into business and entrepreneurship was I'd come home from school and he'd always be like in his office or in our backyard on the phone. He's running a relatively large company from our house. They have offices across the country, but he, as the CEO and owner, works from home. And I was like, that's really cool. He didn't miss a single sports game, not a single birthday, not a single practice, nothing. He was there for everything. And I was like, why doesn't everybody do this? Like, why are people in the city from like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. working? Like, why isn't this normal? So it was my normal growing up. Like, my normal growing up was my dad being at everything and being a great dad and teaching me about business. And then as I grew up, like, I think I showed similar interests. I started flipping shoes on eBay when I was 9 or 10. Like, I started the podcast when I was 16. I had a Instagram sports edits page when I was 12. Like, I had all this stupid shit that really didn't mean anything, but it let me fuel the spirit of entrepreneurship. And I've loved it. Like, nothing makes me more excited than building something new and getting to pursue it. And that's kind of I structured after my dad, and I didn't want anything from him but just his mentorship and sort of me and him text and email and talk 15 times a day, just bouncing ideas and talking with stuff. And like, it's been fun. I've gotten to do a little bit of investing with him as of late in businesses where we get to split and do that. So like, it's just been fun getting to mature and get to do more stuff with him. But I'd say all the credit's my dad on sort of sparking the inspiration.
What about the actual business itself, the business side of entrepreneurship itself? What is it about going out and not knowing what the hell you're doing, or maybe you do, you just don't want to share that with the world.
Definitely,
but like, what is it about building something that gets you going, man?
It's just, dude, there's nothing like it. Like, during the peak of making lemonade, when you get to wake up every day, or with any business, you wake up every day and you have no idea what fire you're going to have to put out that day. I find that incredibly rewarding. And it's not as fun as people make it sound. It's a lot of stress and stupid shit, but like, I love it. It's so much fun getting to like lead an organization. And I think the most valuable thing is like when you can recognize that people you respect you, and like you can really lead a team and see a mission through. Like, that's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And it's just like, it doesn't feel like work. Like, I would spend all day, every day if I could. I sleep like 5 hours a night, but like, when I'm working on a project I really enjoy, I wake up every morning excited to work. And that's there's nothing like it. I just love it. Like, some people love playing golf. I love building projects.
I think, Jess, I heard a quote today. I was listening to a real estate investing podcast, and the guy was like, I'm into real estate investing and it's great. And I'm really lucky that I'm passionate about it because it makes me money. But it just so happens that this is the thing that I'm passionate about. And I'm very lucky it makes me money. It could have been anything else, right? And like, that's the scary part with entrepreneurship is it gives you that fulfillment. It brings you that passion. A lot of times it brings a lot of financial instability and added stress because all the pressure is on you. So I want to give also a shout out to my dad, who I get my entrepreneurial bug as well, Jesse. Same exact thing. He had his office in the house, running his company from home. Every time I would come home from school, he was there in his office, usually telling me to not knock on his door because he was in a call, right? It's like that resonated with me and why I thought entrepreneurship was the best thing. But we're also, and I know you hinted at this with some of the struggles that your dad had, we're also shielded as children from the hardships of being an entrepreneur. We see the great side of my dad's home. He can coach my soccer team. He's home for dinner and he's helping grill. But you don't see when you go to bed, the late night conversations that sometimes happen of, I didn't get a client this month and things are tight, or this guy quit, or, there's legal issues, right? All these other things outside in entrepreneurship that makes it hard. And maybe that is what makes it fun,
Yeah, I think 100%. Like, that's why I've said, and I'm sure it's similar to you. Like, that's why it's been fun as I've gotten older, to a point where like we can have those conversations about everything. Like, fuck, this dude might quit. Like, I need to make sure this guy does not quit. Or like me bringing issues of like, what do I do with this lawyer? Like, I can actually bring real issues I'm having that have real consequences to somebody who's done it for 30 years. And like, it's great to finally be at the age where it's not just me learning. I'm like, here's an actual situation I have, and it fucking scares me. Like, what do you think I should do? And that's been incredible to be able to share that with him.
It's amazing. And I'm sure he allows you to fail too. And see that
encourages
failure through. So exactly. So you can learn from whatever failure you came about it each day. If you're not failing every day, then what are you doing with your life, right? You're definitely not elevating. So, Jesse, I love talking about entrepreneurship, and I think throughout this entire conversation, we've been talking about entrepreneurship, and we'll continue to talk about entrepreneurship because we obviously all have that in common. But also, I feel like that is just so who you are at your core. What buckets of your life are you focusing on right now? I know you're in school. You talked about entrepreneurship, but Sam and I think vision, is to build a really good vision. You got to be able to focus on a few buckets and prioritize those and go all in rather than, I got a bucket here, then a bucket here, then a bucket here. Next thing you know, you're overwhelmed with a lot of buckets. So what are you prioritizing today?
So I'd say it's really I'd say three things. School's important to me. I want to make sure I do well, but I don't consider it like this is the first thing I think of when I wake up. I think the main things that I'm really focused on are relationships. Like it's one thing I've spent a lot of time doing, but I think I've underappreciated certain ones in areas of my life. Like I've been very deep on business relationships and like those types of friends and not as much on other types of relationships. Like I want to make sure that's something I'm actively focusing on. Outside of that, sort of like what I was saying before on business and where I see moving forward, like I think this is this might be very cool or make me look stupid in about 7 years. We'll come back on this, but like, I really want to do something that is big, like bigger than a podcast, bigger than a agency. Like I want to feel like I'm like, once again, doing something that had an impact and did something really cool. So like my head's down. I'm like, all right, I'm 21. I know I've been able to lead a team before through Making Lemonade and it gave me the confidence. Like I can do some of this stuff. Like I want to focus on relationships and I want to focus on building something that I find fulfilling. I'd say those are the main two focuses that I'm sort of waking up, like personal happiness, which I tie to relationships, being in great shape, eating well, and then secondarily, like on a business front, like actually building something that like excites me every day.
So Jesse, I got a good exercise for you, and I'll share it with Elevation Nation as well, of something that I did the other day when I had a day off of work, reflecting that really helped me reshape my vision. Was, I'm older than you. I'm in a corporate job. I'm grinding it out. I took, I think, a couple hours, and I just sat and tried to paint in my mind vividly my perfect ideal day, right? From start to finish, my productive, fulfilled, meaningful, impactful, ideal day down the road and the feelings I felt in each of those activities. So I broke it down by like half-hour increments, waking up at 6:30 all the way through to 11:30. I go to bed earlier than you. I'm old. But like that's what I did, and I broke it down. The feelings that I felt, the exact things that I was doing, painting my perfect ideal day to figure out, okay, now that I have that picture, if I can get to that point, I will feel fulfilled, I will feel accomplished, and I will feel satisfied with waking up every day. How do I work backwards now to get to that point? And there were lots of different parts of my day. I think one of the things that I'm into, and I think you're the same way, is like I like to have diverse opportunities and problems and challenges that I'm solving at one time. So it was like I want to have mentorship as part of my day. I want to have physical challenges and exercises like, I don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as part of my day, right? Then you got to have work and collaborating with people and making an impact, right? And figuring out how your ideal day works and looks like, and then working backwards was something that I found like super impactful for helping me paint that bigger picture for my life.
It's a good way to like, obviously it's really difficult to have that perfect day, let alone like obviously every day and then let alone once. But what's good about that exercise, I've done it before too, is what parts of your day you're going for when at like 6 o'clock at night, you know what you want to do, or 7 a.m. You know what you want to do. For me, it's personally go for a run. And if I can do that every day and like you said, implement that into your routine, it's like, wow, I'm waking up every day to do something that is in my perfect day. I'm going to parlay that with some other things, and maybe that's going to bring up some of the crappy things that happen later in the day, and then I'm going to end the day with this. It's just understanding that a day is a lot of freaking chapters. It can't always just be this one thing that you combine together into this rolled up ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it really, when you break down hour by hour how much happens in a day, you realize, like, there's a lot you can, if you're not happy in a day and it's one consistent thing changing it, like, you can usually find it pretty early. And if you can replace it, like, if something's not making you happy, you can specify it and remove it. You just got to break down individually what sort of goes into that. That's what I found, at least. And typically it's one thing, and that one fix can sort of fix your entire week or day.
And don't get me wrong, you know, in life, suffering is inevitable. There are going to be moments that are going to encompass days, if not weeks, if not months. That's just that's just how life goes. But in the grand scheme of life, then I feel like you can always find joy in anything, in any part of the day. So appreciate that, Jesse. Let's move.
I have one more question in vision. I'm sorry, Parker. I got one more. So I want to bring this back to the self-awareness piece here, Jess. You saying that fear and fears that you had have been kind of a self-awareness driver for you in trying to accomplish those fears, right? Having your grand vision of wanting to do something big, you've already accomplished a hell of a lot as a 21-year-old. You've talked and met with some amazing people. You now have needed to raise the bar in your vision even higher to doing something big. How are you balancing your fear of failure or whatever other fears you might have with that big grand vision that you now have painted for yourself?
You know, it's interesting. I honestly can say at this point, like, I just don't fear failure anymore. Like, I used to. And I used to not do things because I was afraid of the result. And I'm not anymore. Like, I'm not worried about being the kid that, like, created something and failed. Because long term, I really would bet on myself. Not in a like, I know I will. One of the next 3 things I do will fail, 100%. But I'm confident in my ability to pick myself back up, dust it off, not really care what anyone says, and keep going. Like, I care what very little people think of me. Like, it's my family, my closest friends, and the people I respect. Outside of that, like, I'll take
so
your
let
opinion,
me strip,
but I don't really care.
Let me strip away failure really quick, Jesse, and say a different fear then, right? Because I agree. Like, you now have gotten past that fear of failure, but there may be other underlying fears. And here's one, I'll be vulnerable since you were, that I have, is you paint this grand vision of something that you want to accomplish, and you get there, and it's not as fulfilling as you thought it would be, right? You've now accomplished your great big goal, and you don't feel what you thought you'd feel. I don't know what that fear is called, but, like, have you ever thought about that?
Oh, it's happened.
Like, that has crossed my mind.
It's happened.
Right? Like,
it's not fun.
You've interviewed some of the biggest names in the game and crossed that off your list, right? But you want more now.
I don't know.
What,
I've a thought about this. I mean, like, it's like something we've talked about earlier, Sam, is like the most joy comes in the process. And once you get to that goal, that end goal, you're like, wow. Like, you always expect, like, wow, this is the culminating moment of my life. You know, there's going to be fireworks, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. It's just going to be all-encompassing. Then you wake up the next day and you're like, huh, why don't I feel that like I felt yesterday? I'm pretty happy, but I'm not as pumped up. And then it's like, wait, a week goes by. And you're like, what's next?
And nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, what's next? Like, maybe the big goal that you had was like, okay, it wasn't as great or whatever, but like, what if it was amazing? It's never going to last forever. And that's what elevating is all about. Elevating is about stacking those small wins to get to that big win, loving that big win, celebrating that big win. But now it's time to stack again and do that next thing. And there's nothing wrong with it about taking a win, acknowledging it, and then going forward and keep going. Because you and I both know, Sam, and Jesse, I'm sure you know this too, when you look back on the process, that is the most fulfilling part of the entire thing.
Yeah, because satisfaction is great, but complacency is scary. So, like, I don't think you should be I think it should be like, just like when a team wins a football game, like in the playoffs, like you take the night, you celebrate, and then the next day it's like, all right, time to get back to work. Or even when you win a Super Bowl, maybe it's a little more extended, but you celebrate for a week or a month, and then you start all over again and keep building. Like, I think you can look, and it's similar themes across all of life.
Wow, this got deep, Sam. You teed that up nicely. So, Jesse,
thank you.
You know, we talked about self-awareness. We talked about vision. I think a huge component of mental fortitude is self-awareness and vision. But the thing that keeps you going towards that vision that you want, that is centered around who you are, is holding yourself accountable. And this is the last part of the mental fortitude framework, accountability. So what are some things that you've done throughout your life to hold yourself accountable?
Yeah, I mean, I think surrounding myself with friends who have similar goals and expectations and livelihoods. Like, you can obviously hold yourself accountable, but it's great to be able to check in with people you respect and spend time with and have them hold you accountable. But then outside of that, I think once again, I found the way I become most accountable is like setting goals and trying to stick to them. Because if you just set a habit, that's great. But if you have an end goal, I've found it to be much easier to try and stick to.
So talk about a goal right now that has nothing to do with business. Like you're trying to achieve a goal right now that you're trying to achieve that has nothing to do with business.
Get a 6-pack.
6-pack. All right. So you want to get a 6-pack. Break down how you're holding yourself accountable for that.
So, I go to the gym every day. First thing I do when I wake up.
Okay.
Get up at like 6:30, go and do that. I'm competing with my brother. So that's a little...
Oh, wow. So this is a competition. Wow.
Yeah.
So that holds yourself accountable with a doubt because you don't want to lose to your freaking brother.
Exactly. And he's beating me. So that's not acceptable.
Well, it's not also just the physical fitness piece. It's also the nutrition.
Yeah.
And there's some mental component of it too, right? Like actually getting up every morning like, damn, I'm doing this because I want to get a 6-pack.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So what are you doing to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable every day to get to the gym or not eat that burger or whatever?
Not going to the frat every night and drinking. That's a pretty big one. There's a bunch of stuff like MyFitnessPal to stay in a caloric deficit, making sure I go to the gym for 2 hours in the morning. Like, it's at this point, I think it's very minor stuff to like cut the final like couple % of body fat off, but it's annoying and it's significant and it takes fucking time and it's frustrating because you don't see the results as quick as you want, and it's patience, and I'm not very good at patience because I have terrible ADD. So, it takes time, but I've sort of knocked down the 3 key things that, like I said, it's like gym, fitness, and mentally being in a competitive state to sort of stick with it.
So I have a question for both you guys, right? We're all entrepreneurs. I think we're all pretty like crazy high performers into, bettering and elevating our lives, right? And I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't need like tools or reminders or apps to help me, for example, like go to the gym per se, because if I don't, I feel like miserable, like a failure throughout my day. Like, you lazy piece of shit. Why did you not get up this morning? You ruined your entire day. Now you're not awake. Now you're going to get like, it's almost like mind games with myself. So I guess I'm curious, Jesse, how much for you as someone who has achieved a lot, you're an entrepreneur, how much of it do you really need some assistance, and how much of it is within your own head of like, if I don't do this, it's going to ruin my day?
Yeah, no, I think like most of the stuff that's just in my head, it's like, I know I have to wake up in the morning, and I know if I don't, I'm going to be pissed at myself. And like, what's an app going to do to tell me that? The only thing I use an app for really is like track food to like make sure I'm hitting stupid protein macros, which is so fucking stupid. That's a different combo. But no, most of the stuff, it's like I know in my head what needs to get done, and it's binary. It either happens or it doesn't happen. There's no like excuse.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I did it or I didn't, and if I didn't, I'm a fucking loser.
And it's having that self-awareness, to bring it back, is for Jesse, you might not need a lot of those apps and reminders or bribes or people to necessarily make sure that you're waking up early,
though,
right?
when I was younger, and it changes.
There you go, right? So exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to say. That was perfect, is you recognize what you need in that certain situation. For some people, and this isn't better or worse, they need to give their friend $100 and say, for every time I don't go to the gym, donate $1, right? They need those outside intrinsic factors, whatever it may be, to hold themselves accountable. And that's why self-awareness is so important. And part of accountability is understanding what motivates you, a carrot or a stick, your own head, somebody else, and finding that right combination that works for you in that moment for that task that you're trying to achieve.
Well, I hate carrots, and I can't eat a stick. So I don't know how I'm going to get motivated with your metaphor, Sammy. But I read this essay earlier. Yeah, like I read an essay. No, I read an essay by David Perel. He's on Twitter. He's like a writing legend, super really intriguing guy. And he wrote about habits today and like how going to the gym at first, this was one of the examples, like was really difficult. And when he didn't go to the gym that day, he felt like he was a failure. But then over time, he continued to hold himself accountable to get to the gym. A few months later go by, and next thing is just going to the gym is part of his day. It's part of who he is. It's like his love. He found a love for it and a passion for it. And what was interesting is he loved it so much that if he didn't go to the gym, it didn't upset him because he knew that he could always go back. And he always knew that, you know what? Today, I don't want to go to the gym. It's fine. Whatever. I'll just go tomorrow. And then he'll go tomorrow. It's not like that habit will just go away because he didn't go that day. It will stay because he found a love for it. And that's what habits are all about. Finding the thing that works for you. So, Jesse, got a few more questions for you on accountability before we wrap this awesome conversation up. We've talked about your father as a really big mentor in your life, someone who is held you accountable. I'm sure you have many other mentors in your life as well who have kept you sane, given you a lot of guidance, helped you along both personally and in business. But I'm curious, who are the people you've never met in your life who hold you accountable?
Is this a trick question?
This is not a trick question.
Or is my brain too small to comprehend this question?
So I'll let you think about this for a second. Who are the people who are present in your life, but you've never met them, that are mentors to you and hold you accountable?
Okay, that one worked in my brain. So people that I've never met or spoken to that hold me accountable.
This is hard for Jesse because he's talked to every single one of his mentors and people he's looked up to and had him on his podcast. So this is a trick question for you, Jess. You're right.
Like Gary V? Shit. Fuck him too.
Check.
You know what?
Mark Cuban?
Check.
Mark Cuban?
No,
Check out the Trendsetters podcast.
Yeah, please do. Great podcast over there. People I've never spoken. This is really tough, but I understand the question.
And maybe, all right, so Jesse, I'm going to rephrase it because honestly, you are probably one of the few guests we've had on that have talked to many of their idols and people they look up to. So I'm going to rephrase this question a bit. What about any fictional characters, people from books, shows, movies that you're like, I really like that guy's life or how he's conquering that? So, for example, I love Harvey Specter in Suits. He's an asshole, but he just gets after it, right? And he's blunt, he's to the point, he's sharp, he's quick-witted. That characteristic was something that I was trying to figure out. Low-key, when I moved to New York, I was like, I'm going to be like Harvey Specter. I'm going to learn to be tougher and be quicker and smarter, and like maybe I got a little bit of that, but probably not.
How'd that turn out?
Not great. So I guess like anything like that, Jess, that you're like, okay, that's someone interesting.
Yeah, even thinking back on Parker's thing now that my brain is sort of processed through. I'd say there's two that sort of come to mind. From a patience perspective, Warren Buffett, because if you look at the way he's accumulated wealth, like if he stopped investing when he was 55, he'd be worth like, I forget the number, but nowhere near, it's somewhere in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, like not anything close to, I'm trying to see if I can find it. but like not a lot of money and the patience to keep investing over and over again and playing the long game. Like, I think that's been super important because in my head, it's just not like you get so caught up in today, like we've said, and you get caught up in what you're doing right now. And I'm 21 and it's like, I have these high expectations for myself, but the dude's like 90. And here it was, if he quit investing and retired at 60, he would be worth $12 million.
And now it was.
And now he's worth
today,
like, yeah, what's he worth? $100 billion?
91.
Yeah,
crazy.
So like, that's crazy. That dude, like some people, it's insane. So like, I think that's an important one to remember. And I think that's really cool just to learn like the long game really can pay off. And then secondarily, I think Elon Musk and Steve Jobs are just really cool on changing humanity. Like, that's just fucking sick what they did. They permanently changed the world, both of them.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we could talk about Elon Musk Steve Jobs too, but Elon Musk, like, I hate that people hate on him. And yes, I understand why you would hate on him, blah, blah, blah. This guy is literally our modern day inventor. Like, modern day inventor, changing the world forever. Like, the way we are going to live for, like, in the future is going to change dramatically because of what this guy is doing right now. And it's insane to watch it unfold in front of us. It's crazy. It's like literally when you look back at like Ben Franklin in the late 1700s, Thomas Edison, all these people, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that, Sam. I don't know if you agree with that, Jesse, but I firmly believe it.
Yeah. And also, just so I don't get shredded by people, correction, 43, his net worth was at a high of $30 million. But still, like, that's fucking crazy. A lot of people would retire at 43 with $30 million, and now he's worth $90 billion. So, like, just a correction. I don't want to get absolutely destroyed for
we
that.
appreciate the fact checking there, Jesse. And no, Parker, I agree with you, right?
But Parker, yes, I agree.
There are just some people.
Yeah, it's got to be. Or Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Who doesn't have Prime?
I got another question, deep question, before we go to our final few here, Jess. Right? We're talking about you want to do something big. We just mentioned Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I want to ask you a question about legacy. You're 21 years old. You have a super successful podcast. You've raised, over $100,000 for charity in a year and a half. You started your own company. You've done a lot. You go to Cornell. Let's not forget about that. That's just no big deal, right? You go to Cornell. You now want to do something even bigger, right? What does the word legacy mean to you? And is that important? Is that what's driving some of your thought process? Because one of my favorite quotes, and Parker actually, I think, shared this with me, is you die twice. Once when your heart stops beating, and once when your name is spoken for the last time.
Oh, 100%. I think like my biggest, as much like I'd love to say that like once I die and like once again, I don't care about what people say about me in the short term because I'd bet on myself long term. But I'd love to say, you know what? I don't care what anyone thinks about my life. Like, I don't need to be known. I don't need to make any contributions. Like, I just want to be happy. And that's not true. Like, I do want to be, I want people to be like, you know what? Jesse K did that. That's fucking sick. Like, and I don't care if it happens today, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 100%. I don't care if it's my name. I just want something I did to survive past me and have done something cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fucking do. As much as I'd love to say I don't.
I want to phrase, though, I need to add one word in there. You want to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go to
because
jail.
I think there are a lot of sociopaths who have that mentality, Jesse, which, again, like I have a similar one. It's not a bad thing. But they want to be remembered so badly that they do crazy effed up things. And I think there's obviously a big difference between that legacy seeking and the legacy seeking that you and me and Parker have. So I love that. I appreciate you letting me sneak in that last question. But Jess, we've almost been talking for an hour now. You have companies to run and class and school to get to. So we're going to finish it off with...
Don't remind me I have class tomorrow, dude.
Yeah,
I already have a test on Friday. Yeah, dude. Brutal.
Oh, my God. All right, so Jess, we got two final questions that we ask everybody that comes on the Elevation Nation podcast. So I'm going to kick it off. All right, this one's a little bit weird because you have not had this experience happen to you. So we might have to tweak it a bit. I'm going to say the real question reads as this. If you could give advice to your about to graduate college self, who would it be? And I'm going to tweak it a bit. We can ask that question. Man, we are going on just a time travel warp here. All right, let's look into the future then. Go ahead, Jess.
So it's...
If you could write yourself a note right now for Jesse to open day of graduation at Cornell coming up, what would it
As
say?
if I didn't already do that.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, I did that. I did it when... Well, I'll get to your answer after, but the premise of me saying that was, yeah, no, I've learned, just like I said, like if 3 years ago I could see what would happen, that'd be fucking crazy. My first week at Cornell, when it was shit, and I was afraid and scared and fearful, I wrote a letter like, hey, this fucking sucks. And like, I'm afraid, but I know it's going to work out. And I had it set to remind me at the end of last semester, and then in fucking 2 years when I graduate. So that part's done. But if I were to give a reminder to myself when I graduate, I think it's sort of the main two things I'd say were like, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Like, it will work out, as I've repeated over and over again. Like, I just hold myself to such a like intense, unfair standard, way more intense. Like, when I give advice to my friends, if I put myself in their shoes, like, I'm giving so much different advice than if it's to myself. I'm way more compassionate and empathetic and I have a better frame of mind instead of the emotional, like, this needs to get done today. And if I don't do this, like, I think that's a big thing that I'd recommend. And then second off, like, value relationships more. Value that the most. That's been the single most impactful thing of my entire life. The people I've met, the relationships I've had, how I can talk to you guys once every couple months and it feels like I talked to you all day yesterday. Like, there's very few people that you have those relationships with, and it's very important to stay on top of them, and it's easy to forget about them for a couple months when life gets busy, but prioritize relationships over other things because it makes you happy. We're back. Sorry, guys. I don't know how I lost you. I heard... Okay. No, yeah, the last thing I heard was, I don't know if I'd give that advice, and that's where it cut. To myself, maybe? Is that... Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. I think recognizing and being comfortable with short-term pain for long-term results, and being comfortable and excited to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Totally. Yeah, I used to be I used to actively tell myself not, like, I used to actively prevent myself from being in an area I was uncomfortable. Like, that caused fear. And now I actively try to get in a zone where I'm uncomfortable, and it's paid crazy dividends.
It's called mental fortitude, Jess. And that's why we love you, man. That's your line, man. Win-win. Parker is the win-win king.
I like it.
But yes, Jesse, you have mental fortitude, man. This was an incredible conversation. You're a great kid. We love you like a younger brother. But we're going to, post for everybody how they can follow you, because you are having amazing conversations on your podcast, Trendsetters. You are doing fantastic work with another previous Elevation Nation podcast guest, Alex Scheinman. And you continue to introduce us to even more amazing people to come on our show and be our friends and become part of our network and our nation. So thank you for that. We are excited for you to finish up school at Cornell and join us here in the real world and watch you continue to elevate yourself and others and conquer the real world, man. So incredible work. Thank you for giving us the time tonight, bro.
Guys, thanks for having me. It was a blast. It's way overdue, and it's a ton of fun.
Until next week, Elevation Nation. Peace.